So I'm curious, the work that you're doing now, did it start kind of recently in light of everything happening in 2020, or did it kind of start earlier and now just sort of coming to fruition?
Oh, it's been an ongoing research project for Tahnee and I for a good 8 years. And for me, for my life, as well as Tahnee's life, we've been preparing, I guess, individually for this. But we find that this time now is perfect for bringing this work out. It seems like we were being prepared to share this with the world, and it's absolutely spot on for what's happening, to explain how people are reacting in this light of the situation going on now with COVID, and how they can find a way through all of this and get out of the fear that's being brought around.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody alive is at a different terrain of consciousness, which basically means that their entire relationship to reality is different. It's almost like you could think of them as 10 different operating systems or 10 different paradigms. And so depending on which terrain you're at, you're actually going to see what's happening in terms of the coronavirus very differently from how someone at a different terrain will see it. And so even though our book came out 5 years ago, and we've had a lot of people read it and been using it, at this particular point in time, suddenly there's a huge amount of need for this kind of information. Mainly so that people can understand the people that they're living with and why they're reacting so differently to this situation, but also so that we can understand ourselves and what's coming up for us, what's being triggered in us, what kind of things, what kind of lessons we're facing at this point in our journey right now because of the terrain we're at during this virus crisis.
Right. That's an interesting point you brought up about when you're living with someone, you're all sort of in this same household, seeing each other's reactions, and maybe it's your boyfriend or your husband or your wife or your teenager are all going to react to what's going on in completely different ways. And so you're saying that this is partly due to them being at different terrains. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of differences, like personality type differences and differences in experience and age and maturity, and also people's childhood wounding playing out, all that stuff. That kind of stuff everybody already knows about, people are fairly familiar with. But there is actually a second thing going along as well, which is where someone's at in their spiritual evolutionary journey, like where they're at in their actual evolutionary development. And that is the terrain of consciousness that they're at. Mm-hmm. And often people in the same family will all be at the same terrain and it won't be an issue. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes the parents are at a different terrain than the children, or two spouses are at a different terrain from each other. And there can be some really deep, fundamental core differences in what they need to feel safe and how they're interacting with the situation that are not explainable by things like personality type.
Right.